Hello, this is going to be a look at using Evaluate. Evaluate is some software I've written to evaluate large language models. You can evaluate them using Ollama or remote OpenAI, Anthropic, Gemini models. So if I just do a quick demo of what I've done, it produces graphs, model performance. You can compare each model for how good or bad it is using LLM as a judge. If you've not come across LLM as a judge, what you're doing is you're sending a request to your first LLM and then asking it to pass the result to a second LLM, which then gives an answer based on some sort of ground source truth. If you want to know what that actually means, this is the Python client, which I've put on pip, py pip install llmeval-sdk. I'll put a link to it in the video description. You can just do pip install because I've actually put it on to PyPy. From LLM eval, import eval client. So as long as you've done the pip install, this line will work. This is the client, and you obviously need a server. The server is what I've written, and it's available here. I'll show you that shortly, but just let's have a look at a demo. So the first thing we're going to do is just check the servers there, healthy version 1. So using the class eval client, we just pass in the base URL. It'll always be this. I've just hard coded it on port 8080. A future version will allow you to change the port. Check models. So these models I've actually set up locally on my machine using a .env file with my server, which I'll show you shortly. I'm using Ollama to serve Llama 3, and I've also got an API key for Gemini. The code also, the server will work with OpenAI and Anthropic as well. So here we go. We've got the client, which we created here, passing in a model. We know the model's available because we've checked for it. We will have when I run this. So check models uses the get models method. And then any of these are available, or they should be available. That doesn't guarantee they'll work because you may have a bad API key, but it guarantees you can use them or attempt to use them even. So Gemini 2.5 Pro. Let's just use that one. So that's the model that's going to ask the question, or that's the model that's going to get asked the question. The judge model is the model which is going to take the expected answer and the answer from your original. So Gemini will get asked a question, what's the capital of France? It will return an answer, and then that answer plus Paris will get passed to Ollama 3, and Ollama 3 will decide whether those two answers are comparable. I'll get into more detail in a second, but let's just run this. So we'll look at the output. The model output is the output from the normal model that you call him. The judge verdict is what happens when Ollama takes the answer from the first model plus the expected answer. Now this is kind of hard coded. It's like a ground truth. So we'll run it. And you can see here the server's doing stuff. I'll just make that bigger. And you can see what's happening behind the scenes. So it's starting the evaluation with the model. This is the server. What is the capital of France? So Gemini responds in 5 seconds. And the judge, which is Ollama, takes 18 seconds because I've got no GPU on my little computer down here. But it's judged that the answer was sufficiently relevant. So that's the server that I've just showed you there. You don't need to worry about that. As long as you've installed it, it'll handle all the back-end stuff. So Capital Francis Paris judge verdict is pass because the answer from Gemini was a close match to what was expected. You probably get the idea by now. I'm overdoing it. So here we're going to ask Ollama for the answer, and then Gemini will be the judge. So let's run that again. Well, not again, but we'll do the same thing again with the question, go into our local Llama 3 model, and then Gemini 2.5 Pro will decide whether the answer was okay. That's some output from earlier, so let's just check what the server's doing. And fail. Two outputs do not share the same core meaning. The expected output, Paris, is a specific proper noun, where the actual output is complete sentence, makes a factual assertion about that noun. So again, this is where you need to do the testing, or why you need to do the testing. If we look at our dashboard, you can see Gemini Pro, Gemini Flash. So these are the models that are doing the question answering. The fail is basically what the judge is deciding. So potentially you could have an inaccurate judge. So that's something to consider. So this is quite time consuming using Llama. I'll skip that. So here we'll do a batch. So far I've just shown you single requests. So the SDK is basically using requests to do this behind the scenes, but the client just makes it a lot easier because from LLM eval import client, and then client equals eval client, and that tells it the server. Then you just do your bits. So you've got run eval, which is just one eval, or you've got alternatively down here you've got run batch. So if you don't take anything from this video, remember we've got a server which runs once you set it up. You've got a client, and the client can either run a single eval or it can run a batch. Now the batch here, I've just typed it in, but you would typically have this read from a file. You can have what's called a golden data set. Now you could run the same judge model and the same model in every case over, say, 100 questions. So then you'd get a feel of obviously you want these different, and ideally you want them as different providers. I just haven't got an Anthropic or OpenAI set up at the moment because of credit card and stuff. So, but here you could put in one model, have a different judge model, and then you could repeat the same question. So you could have 4 different models with the same question, same judge model, or you can mix them up. Also, the other thing I've added in here is criteria. So if you want an exact match, it'll fail, or this will fail. So you can say it's got to be an exact match, which you probably wouldn't often do. You can specify semantic equivalence. So you're telling the judge model that you want the expected answer and the answer from the original model, you want them to be semantically equivalent. So as a reasonable human would interpret. So I've run this already, but I'm just let's run it again. So this shouldn't take too long because we're going to make 3 calls to Gemini, Flash, and Pro. So run it. You can see this going on here. So we got pass. So total evaluation time, 12 seconds. This is running asynchronously, so it's basically the longest one was 12 seconds. Average model latency 2 seconds. Average judge latency is 8 seconds. So the judge model takes longer, which is unusual, really. I need to investigate that, really, because you would expect the judge to actually be quicker because it's not actually got to do any generative stuff. But so pass 2 plus 2 equals 4. That's okay. Hello in French. That's a pass. This one it didn't like. So yeah, got 2 out of 3 there. So if we go back to our dashboard, this is running WebSockets, by the way, so it's updating in real time. And we're getting quite a good feel here. Oh wow, Gemini Flash, a lot of errors from that. So if we come down here, we can see, we can quickly view what the problematic questions are. You got the latency there. That's the latency to the server. It's not actually the delay to the LLM. That's much more. So that's 12 seconds. Okay, so that's a quick overview of what the client does and how you can use it with Python in the front end. So the back end, it's a testing framework. It's storing the results to a database, so you've got persistence. So if you close Juputer Lab, fire it back up, it wouldn't make any difference to this because these results will get retained over time. You can specify the LLM provider and the judge. So again, like I say, you could have OpenAI versus Anthropic, different models again, batch evals to multiple providers. Here, I actually created sample JSON, which the Rust version actually, which is what this is written in, it's using like the Ginger syntax for placeholders. Anyway, just remember that the batch evals from Python, you can either write your own inline or you could equally import a JSON file as long as it's an array, a list of dictionaries. So model prompt expected. So that's optional. You don't have to specify the criteria. You do need to specify the model prompt, the expected. So the expected, these are very simple examples, but obviously you could ask it to do some crazy stuff. You could ask it to, write some Python code to build yourself a Flask web server or whatever. But right, so the options you have for installing this, you can either let's see, yeah. So if you don't have Ollama on your machine, you need to do sudo apt to get install Ollama. Ollama pull Llama 3 if you're on Mac or Linux. I think it's Brew, is it Brew on Mac? And then also on Windows, then yeah, I'm not going there. So these are the env environment variables. So you could pretty much copy and paste this into Notepad, save it as a .env file. You will need, if you're on Mac and you want to use Docker, you just need to specify that for Docker. If you're on Linux, you actually override that and you just copy and paste these commands. So it's just starting up Docker. It's reading the .env file and it's saving the data. Saving the data within your projects, but then it's mounting it there. So Mac as well, evaluate later. So it's pulling the latest Docker image. This is how you could, if you want to write something with Python, you could use requests and you would pretty much replicate what curl is doing here. You could use fast API or No, you wouldn't want to do that. Sorry, forget about the fast API. You could, if you wanted to do something in JavaScript, you could, as long as you're doing the post and providing this data JSON, as JSON. The batch evals, again, you could do them from a, was it Gradio Streamlit? That's the one. Documentation, I put Gemini 1.5 in there. That's been deprecated, so ignore that. You change it to 2.5. That's the dashboard. So the dashboard, you can also, if you wanted to just to run the server and have the files running, here you go. You'd click on, when you start up, you could go to front end there, and you can also run it just as a, forget all the Python stuff. You could just do clone the repo, cargo run, assuming you've got Rust installed, or if you're using Docker, start the Docker image, and then you've got the models here. So again, the same list of models, and I'll just quickly show you in a second how. So we're doing the same thing here. What is 10 plus 2? And the answer is 12. And selected model. We'll do a different model, so Flash and Pro. Get the little spinner there. It takes as long as it takes. And it's, yeah, judge was 7 seconds, total time was 7.9. So the judge response is always the one that takes longer. I guess it's doing more thinking. Pass. So again, history, you got the history here. So this is the built-in GUI that comes with the server. But if you're interested in Python and using the SDK, then you want to do this. So this notebook is on this Python, sorry, this GitHub repo. And you want to look at examples and go to this notebook, which you can load in GitHub, and you can just view it there. So that's pretty much what I've just showed you, but with a black screen. Okay, so the env file, let me just quickly show you. I don't want to show you my env file. What you need to do is you need to take the example. Yeah, and just take that as is. So if you're on Mac, you can set host Docker, but if you're on Linux, you can do that. If you're on Windows, probably just use WSL. If you're not familiar with running stuff in Docker, the instruction, you would need to install Docker, but I'm not going to cover that here. But once you've installed Docker, you clone this repo, Docker build, evaluate latest. So you have to build, and as long as you run it from this directory, you've got your Docker file, and it builds, it uses, behind the scenes, it builds all the Rust stuff, and then you've got an image which you can run. And there's this little thing here which shows you how to run it with Rust, just cargo run. But from the Python point of view, really it's the pip install LLM eval-sdk. I've already installed it, but if we just run it again down here, I'll just show you what happens. In Juputer Notebook, you just put the exclamation mark before the already satisfied. But that's what you would do if you hadn't already installed it. So once you've got that, you've got the client. And once you've got the client, you can do your health check, you get models, you run eval. So you will need API keys for your provider, which I can't really help you with. But I think we're probably all getting the hang of obtaining keys and signing up and registering and credit card details or whatever. Or just remember, if you store your env file, then add it to Git ignore, because if you're ever uploading stuff back to GitHub, you don't want your API keys going to GitHub for the world to see. So yeah, there we go. Evaluate demo. That's a demo of Evaluate, which is a eval server which provides an API and LLM eval-sdk, which is on pypy.org. And there are the instructions. So that's just to run a single eval. And the batch evals I've shown you here, the batch inputs, run as a batch, client.run batch, and then you pass in the batch inputs. And then, yeah, happy days. You get a bit of a summary at the end. So thanks for watching. Please download the repos, try them. Say if you don't want to use anything to do with Rust, just run the Docker image, and from once you've got the Docker image running, it'll be running on localhost port 8080, and then once it's running on port 8080, then you're off to the races, because you just then need to do from LLM eval import via client, blah, blah, blah. So thanks for watching. Thumbs up, like the video, give me some stars on GitHub, and yeah, have some fun. You can really get to the bottom of how good or bad these models are, because one is judging the other. And then the key thing to remember is it the judge that's bad, or is it the original model that's bad? And then I've also put some arXiv links in here. So if you want to read more about evals, you're probably best off going here. LLMs as Judges, Comprehensive Survey on LLM-Based Evaluation. And that was 10th of December 2024. And you can read all about biases, evaluation input, point-wise evaluation, pairwise evaluation, list-wise, etc. It's all good stuff. So yeah, that's kind of a schematic of what's going on here. Yeah, thanks for watching. Thumbs up. See you again.